Have you ever seen a mafia boss pretend he only had 1 hour left to live, then freeze in horror after hearing his own fiancée order the doctors to kill him faster? Vincent Rossi, one of the most powerful mafia bosses in Chicago, knew someone was secretly trying to steal his entire empire. After surviving a poisoning attempt that nearly took his life, Vincent decided to stage a terrifying test. He pretended that the poison had destroyed his organs and that he had only 1 hour left to live. The news instantly threw the entire Rossi mansion into chaos. Lawyers, doctors, and assistants were all summoned in the middle of the night. But the thing Vincent never expected most was the reaction of Isabella De Luca, the woman who was supposed to become his wife. Only minutes after the doctors announced his critical condition, Isabella immediately rushed into the office to transfer assets, sign documents to move company shares, and secretly call her lover. Even inside that cold, dark hospital room, she coldly ordered the doctor to increase the medication dose to help Vincent pass away peacefully sooner. One doctor standing nearby froze in horror, but did not dare say a word, and every single sentence was overheard by Sophia Bennett, the new night shift nurse. Sophia stood trembling outside the hospital room, her hands gripping the medical file so tightly they turned pale white, because the man lying on that bed was Vincent Rossi, the first love she had lost contact with 20 years earlier. The man who once promised to take her away from the poor streets of Southside Chicago, before ambition and the mafia world dragged them into different lives forever. And then the most horrifying moment happened. Just as the doctor prepared to inject the final dose according to Isabella's orders, Sophia suddenly rushed forward and violently pushed the doctor's arm away. "Stop! He's not dead yet." The entire room fell silent. Isabella screamed in panic. The bodyguards instantly pulled out their guns, and Vincent Rossi, the man pretending to be dying on the hospital bed, slowly opened his eyes and stared directly at Sophia in complete shock. Their eyes met inside the suffocating room filled with the smell of medicine and betrayal. Vincent froze when he realized the nurse who had just saved his life was the woman he had never forgotten for the past 20 years. But the most shocking thing of all happened immediately afterward. A little girl around 8 years old rushed into the hospital room behind Sophia while holding a small bouquet of flowers. The little girl burst into tears and tightly hugged Vincent Rossi's arm in front of everyone's horrified eyes. "Daddy, please don't die." In that exact moment, Vincent Rossi's entire world completely collapsed. His tattooed hands trembled violently, because for the first time in his blood-soaked and betrayal-filled life, he realized he had not only lost the woman he loved, but he had also lost 8 entire years of being the father of his own daughter. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on the quiet power of kindness, especially when no one else chooses to show it. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're watching from, which city and country are you in, and what time is it there right now. It's always amazing to see how stories like this connect people from all over the world. Is it United States, London, maybe Canada, Jamaica, South Africa, or anywhere we want to know? And tell us what you learned at the end of this video. If moments like this remind you of the beauty of humanity, please like the video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more powerful stories that celebrate compassion, courage, and the simple acts of kindness that can change a life. The rain fell in relentless sheets over the south side of Chicago, turning the cracked sidewalks into glistening mirrors that reflected the flickering neon signs of rundown diners and pawn shops. Vincent Rossi stood at the edge of a dimly lit alley, his broad shoulders cutting an imposing silhouette against the glow of passing headlights. At 42 years old, Vinny was a man who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Fair-skinned with sharp, angular features inherited from generations of Italian-American immigrants who had built lives in this city, he had risen to become one of the most powerful mafia bosses in the Midwest. His legitimate businesses in import-export masked an underground empire of influence, wealth, and quiet control. Yet beneath the tailored suits and the gleam of his classic black Ford Mustang parked nearby, a gnawing emptiness had settled deep in his chest for years. Tonight, the weight of that emptiness pressed heavier than usual. Vinny had just concluded a tense meeting with associates in a back room of a nondescript warehouse, the kind of place where deals were struck under the shadow of unspoken threats. Rival factions had been pushing boundaries lately, testing the fragile lines he had drawn across the city. As he stepped out into the downpour, adjusting the collar of his wool overcoat, a sudden movement caught his eye. A small figure darted from behind an overflowing dumpster, splashing through puddles with desperate speed. The boy could not have been more than 8 years old. Soaked to the bone, his threadbare jacket clinging to his thin frame, he ran as if the devil himself chased him. Vinny froze, his instincts sharpening. In his world, unexpected runners often meant trouble, but something in the child's frantic eyes, wide with terror, pierced through the armor Vinny had built around his heart. "Stop!" a woman's voice cried out from further down the alley, hoarse and breaking with exhaustion. Elena Martinez stumbled into view moments later, her worn sneakers slipping on the wet concrete. She was in her early 30s, but the hardships of life had etched deeper lines across her face. Once perhaps vibrant, she now appeared painfully frail, malnourished, with hollow cheeks and dark circles under her eyes from countless sleepless nights. Her clothes were little more than rags layered for warmth, a faded, oversized sweater riddled with holes, jeans patched so many times they resembled a quilt of despair. For weeks she had endured the biting Chicago winds, sleeping in shelters when lucky, or huddled with her son in abandoned doorways when the shelters turned them away. The humiliation burned in her chest daily, the way store clerks looked at her with pity or disdain when she begged for day-old bread, the way landlords had evicted them after one missed rent payment too many, leaving them with nothing but a single duffel bag of belongings. "Tommy, please come back," she called again, her voice soft and timid, laced with the politeness born of someone who had learned that raising her voice often invited more trouble. Her legs trembled from weakness, and a wave of dizziness washed over her. The world tilted for a moment. She reached out to steady herself against a brick wall, her fingers numb from the cold. Vinny watched as the boy Tommy collided almost directly into his path. The child skidded to a halt, breathing hard, his small hands clutching a crumpled piece of paper that looked like a school drawing. Their eyes met. In that instant, something inexplicable stirred within Vinny, a surge of protectiveness he had not felt in decades. It was not mere curiosity. It was an overwhelming, passionate pull, fierce and immediate like hating, as if fate had reached out and shaken the foundations of his guarded soul. Who is this child? The question echoed violently in his mind, tearing at old wounds of regret, memories of choices that had left him childless and isolated, gnawing guilt over paths taken that could never be undone. Before Vinny could speak, two rough-looking men emerged from the opposite end of the alley, their postures aggressive. Rivals from a competing faction, no doubt sniffing around for weaknesses in his territory. One of them shouted, "Kid saw too much. Hand him over." The confrontation escalated quickly but without chaos. Vinny stepped forward, his presence alone, a wall of authority. "This is my street," he said calmly, his voice low and commanding, carrying the weight of years of command. The men hesitated, recognizing him. Words were exchanged in tense, clipped tones, veiled threats about boundaries and respect. Vinny's men, who had been waiting discreetly nearby, materialized to back him up. The rivals retreated into the rain, muttering curses, but the encounter left a lingering chill of danger. Tommy clung to Vinny's leg, instinctively shivering. Elena approached cautiously, her steps hesitant. Up close, her poverty was even more heartbreaking. Her hands were raw from odd jobs, washing dishes at a local diner, her body weak from months of stretching meager meals of canned beans and stale sandwiches. The injustice of it all, a good woman reduced to this by circumstances beyond her control. An absent father for Tommy, medical bills that had piled up after a childhood illness. Evictions that stripped away every last shred of dignity, clawed at her spirit. She felt horror and anxiety twisting inside her like a storm. Who is this powerful man? Why did he help? "Ma'am," Vinny said, turning to her with unexpected gentleness. His heart raced with inner conflict. The remorse he carried for a life built on shadows for the family he had never allowed himself surged forward. Seeing Elena's exhausted form and Tommy's trusting eyes created a violent emotional whirlwind. He wanted to shield them, to erase the misery etched into their lives. "You're safe now, both of you." Elena looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper, polite and guarded. "Thank you, sir. I don't know what to say. We're just trying to get by." Confusion and fear mingled with a spark of curiosity. This stranger radiated wealth and power, the shine of his watch, the cut of his coat that cost more than she earned in a year. Yet there was a depth in his eyes, a quiet turmoil that mirrored her own hidden pain. Later that night, after Vinny had arranged for them to be taken to one of his safer properties, a modest but clean suburban house on the edge of the city with a small backyard, the intensity of the moment lingered. Elena sat on the edge of a soft couch, wrapped in a warm blanket that felt like luxury after so many freezing nights. Tommy had fallen asleep in the next room, his small body finally at rest. She stared at the walls, adorned with simple American touches, a framed baseball print, a vintage radio on the shelf. The contrast was overwhelming. One moment she had been powerless on the streets, the next, under the protection of a man whose name alone commanded silence in dark corners. Vinny stood by the window, gazing out at the rain that had eased into a drizzle. His mind churned with consuming remorse. What am I doing? Bringing strangers, a destitute mother and her son, into his world invited risks from rivals from within his own organization. Yet the fierce inner conflict would not subside. The boy Tommy had triggered something profound. Vinny felt an inexplicable, deep bond forming as if this child carried a piece of his own lost humanity. The love that flooded him was parental, protective, responsible, a father's instinct awakening after years of dormancy. He imagined teaching the boy to throw a baseball, to find joy in simple things like backyard games on summer evenings. The guilt over his own past weighed heavier now, a violent tearing at his soul. I have built an empire, but what have I truly protected? Elena, sensing his presence, spoke softly. Mr. Rossi, is it I don't understand why you're helping us? People like me, we don't get chances like this. Her words carried the weight of deep disorientation. She felt numb, off balance, as if the ground had shifted beneath her. Shock at her sudden change in fortune mixed with fear of what strings might be attached. Yet in her heart a timid hope flickered for Tommy's sake, if nothing else. Weeks later, as the three navigated the fragile new reality, the emotional layers deepened. Vinny arranged for Elena to receive proper meals and medical checkups, watching as color slowly returned to her cheeks. Tommy began to open up, sharing drawings of family scenes that unknowingly stabbed at Vinny's remorseful heart. The Mafia boss found himself lingering in the house longer than necessary, the inner turmoil growing more intense with each passing day. Rival tensions simmered in the background, another near confrontation on a quiet street, where Vinny personally intervened to ensure their safety, heightening the suspense of his double life. In quiet moments of condensed emotional stillness, Vinny would sit alone after Elena and Tommy had gone to bed, replaying the fateful collision in the rain. The child's innocent trust, the mother's resilient yet broken spirit, they were resurrecting something in him. A chance at redemption. A reincarnation of the man he might have been. The father-child bond, still unspoken, pulsed with promise and pain, pulling him toward a path of compassion and healing he had long believed closed forever. Next morning, pale sunlight filtered through the lace curtains of the suburban safe house, casting gentle patterns across the wooden floors. Vincent Rossi paced the living room, his polished leather shoes silent on the thick carpet. The space was a world away from the South Side alleys, furnished with comfortable sofas, a sturdy oak dining table, and shelves holding classic novels and framed photographs of American landscapes. Outside, a modest backyard stretched out from the south, complete with a fresh patch of grass and a worn baseball glove left on a bench, remnants of a life Vinny had once imagined but never pursued. His wealth showed in every detail: the heavy crystal decanter on the sideboard, the sleek lines of his luxury watch catching the light, and the quiet hum of security systems that ensured no unwanted visitors could approach. Elena sat at the kitchen table, her thin frame swallowed by a borrowed sweater that still smelled faintly of cedar from storage. She picked at a plate of scrambled eggs and fresh toast foods that felt almost unreal after months of scavenging whatever the diner could spare at closing time. Her body ached from the accumulated toll bones, prominent under pale skin eyes, heavy with exhaustion that no single night of rest could erase. The humiliation of her past clung to her like a shadow. The eviction notices slid under doors. The judgmental stares from caseworkers. When she could not afford medicine for Tommy's recurring fevers, the nights spent curled in a bus shelter, as icy winds whipped through thin blankets. Each memory brought a fresh wave of inner torment, a confusing numbness that made her question if this new shelter was real or another cruel illusion. Tommy bounded into the room, his small face brighter than it had been in months. "Mom, look, there's a whole fridge full of stuff." His excitement was pure, unfiltered, a reminder of the innocence Vinny found himself drawn to with ferocious intensity. Vinny paused his pacing, watching the boy. The inexplicable pull from the rainy night had only strengthened. It was a paternal surge, deep and protective, like a long-buried fatherly instinct roaring to life. This child, he stirs something I thought was dead. Violent conflict tore at Vinny's heart, the remorse for his shadowed empire clashing against this sudden responsibility. He had built power through calculated risks, yet bringing a destitute family into his orbit felt like the most dangerous gamble of all. Later that afternoon, as Elena stepped outside to breathe the crisp air, a soft knock echoed from the back gate. Mia slipped through her tangled hair and patched coat, marking her as another product of the same unforgiving streets. The 8-year-old girl eyed Vinny with immediate suspicion, her small arms crossed tightly. "Tommy, you can't stay here," she whispered urgently when the adults were momentarily distracted. "Guys like him, they chew up kids and spit them out. I've seen it, promises then nothing but trouble." Her voice carried the hardened edge of someone who had learned too early that trust was a luxury the poor could not afford. Elena overheard and approached her steps tentative. "Mia, honey, it's okay. Mr. Rossi helped us when no one else would." Her tone was soft, timid, and polite, the careful deference of a woman addressing someone far above her station. Yet inside, anxiety twisted like a knot. She felt guarded, a flicker of fear that this kindness might vanish as quickly as it appeared, leaving them more broken than before. The disparity hit her anew, Vinny's world of tailored clothes and effortless authority versus her own history of powerless desperation. Scavenging for coins in laundromats just to buy a single meal. Vinny observed the exchange from the doorway, his broad frame filling the space. A new confrontation brewed unexpectedly on the quiet suburban street. Two unfamiliar vehicles slowed near the corner, scouts from a rival faction probing his territory. Vinny stepped out calmly, his presence commanding without a raised voice. Words passed in measured tones under the afternoon, light-veiled warnings about respect and boundaries exchanged like chess moves. His associates, discreetly positioned, ensured the encounter diffused, but the tension lingered, a bold reminder of the risks shadowing this rescue. Vinny's inner world churned with gnawing remorse. Every protection I offer them paints a target. The violent, emotional conflict intensified guilt over endangering what he now felt compelled to shield, warring with the deepening attachment to Tommy's hopeful eyes. Weeks later, in the quiet hours after dinner, Elena stood by the kitchen sink, washing dishes with careful movements. The warm water was a small mercy after years of cold taps in rundown apartments. Tommy and Mia played a simple board game at the table, their laughter a fragile melody in the house. Vinny joined them, lowering his powerful frame into a chair that creaked slightly under his weight. He handed Tommy the baseball glove, demonstrating a gentle underhand toss across the room. The boy's delighted catch sent a wave of profound emotion through Vinny, a fierce, burning paternal love that surprised him with its depth. It was not mere duty. It was an overwhelming need to nurture, to heal the voids in his own soul by offering this child stability. Yet hidden truths simmered beneath the surface. While reviewing security reports in his study that evening, Vinny uncovered fragments of information about Tommy's background. Medical records and old neighborhood whispers pointed to a connection he had not anticipated. The revelation struck like a silent thunderbolt. DNA traces from a routine check confirmed what his instincts had whispered. Tommy carried his blood, hidden paternity, born from a fleeting encounter years earlier with Elena during a vulnerable time in Vinny's rise. The shock numbed him momentarily, a dizzying disorientation that made the room tilt. "My son," the words echoed, tearing violently at his conscience. Remorse flooded in waves for the years lost, for the empire that had kept him from knowing this boy, for the dangers now threatening his own flesh and blood. Elena sensed his changed demeanor when he emerged later that night. She stood in the hallway, her frail posture a testament to endured hardships, sleep stolen in fits and starts on park benches, meals skipped so Tommy could eat. "Mr. Rossi, is everything all right?" Her voice remained polite, laced with genuine curiosity and a hint of fear. Confusion clouded her thoughts why this powerful man cared so deeply. The unfairness of her past replayed denied opportunities, systemic barriers that kept her family in cycles of poverty, while others like Vinny amassed fortunes. It evoked a deep inner torment, a heartbreaking blend of gratitude and lingering suspicion that this protection might come at an unseen cost. Vinny met her gaze, suppressing the storm within. His wealth felt heavier now, the imported furnishings, the fleet of vehicles in the garage, symbols of success that paled against the purity of Tommy's trust. He arranged for Mia to stay under protection as well, recognizing her bond with Tommy as a lifeline. Another street encounter tested him days afterward. Rivals attempted a subtle approach near the local market where Elena shopped for groceries with newfound allowance. Vinny intervened personally, his calm authority, turning them away in a tense standoff filled with unspoken implications. No blows landed, but the suspense thickened the air, underscoring his commitment. In moments of condensed emotional stillness, Vinny sat alone on the backyard bench under starlit skies, the baseball glove in his hands. The father-child bond deepened with every shared glance, every small act of guidance. Tommy's innocent questions about the world chipped away at Vinny's armored heart, awakening compassion he had long buried under layers of power and regret. Elena watched from the window, her own emotions shifting from guarded curiosity toward a quiet, burning trust, not for herself but for the future this man might secure for her son. The inner tearing grew sharper, a confusing whirlwind of hope and anxiety that left her numb yet strangely anchored. The rescue had drawn blood ties into the light, hidden no longer. Vinny felt the weight of responsibility like never before, his powerful frame carrying the silent vow to protect this vulnerable family against all odds. Yet with every new dawn, the emotional layers unfolded further, promising both redemption and peril in equal measure. Next morning, golden light spilled across the suburban kitchen, warming the polished countertops and the array of fresh groceries stocked in the refrigerator. Vincent Rossi sat alone at the heavy oak table, a stack of confidential reports spread before him like unwelcome guests. His powerful frame, clad in a crisp, button-down shirt that spoke of quiet wealth, remained still but inside a storm brewed with fresh fury. The fragments uncovered the previous night had kept him awake, gnawing at the edges of his conscience until they demanded full attention. He had arranged for discreet verification through trusted channels, medical histories, cross-checked against subtle samples, and now the results lay in his hands, undeniable in their clarity. Elena entered the room quietly, carrying a basket of clean laundry. Her movements were slow, her slender arms still bearing the marks of prolonged hardship, skin stretched tight over fragile bones, shoulders hunched from years of carrying burdens too heavy for one person. The absolute extremity of her past poverty lingered in her every gesture. Nights spent shivering under threadbare coats in alleyways where wind howled like judgment. Days where she had divided a single loaf of bread into portions so small, they barely eased the constant ache of hunger for herself and Tommy. The unfairness of it all denied job opportunities due to lack of stable address. Medical clinics turning her away for unpaid bills, landlords evicting them without mercy during her weakest moments resurfaced in sharp, humiliating flashes that made her chest tighten with renewed torment. "Mr. Rossi," she said softly, her voice timid and polite as she addressed the man who held their fragile safety in his grasp. "Thank you again for the clothes and the food." Tommy slept through the whole night for the first time in months. A flicker of guarded curiosity mixed with lingering anxiety in her eyes. She felt a deep disorientation, as if the ground beneath her worn shoes might shift at any moment. One part of her wanted to trust this sudden sanctuary, yet another recoiled at the vast gulf between her powerless existence and his world of effortless abundance. The gleaming luxury sedan in the driveway, the fine wool coats hanging in the entryway closet. Vinny looked up, forcing a measured nod. The paternal surge he felt toward Tommy had evolved overnight into something more profound, a burning attachment that filled him with both warmth and violent inner conflict. "My own blood." The confirmation struck him anew, a psychological shock that left him momentarily numb, his broad hands clenching the edge of the table. Remorse tore through him like an unseen blade, years wasted in pursuit of power, while his son endured the very streets Vinny claimed to control. The guilt was consuming a fresh layer of torment that made his successful empire feel hollow, built on foundations that had blinded him to this hidden truth. Later that afternoon, Tommy and Mia played in the backyard, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Tommy tossed the baseball with growing confidence, the leather glove fitting snugly on his small hand. Vinny watched from the doorway, the sight stirring an intense, protective love that surprised him with its raw depth. He stepped outside, joining the children in a gentle game of catch. Each throw and catch deepened the father-child bond in ways words could not capture. Tommy's innocent grin, the way he cheered at every successful catch, chipped away at Vinny's armored heart. In these quiet moments of condensed emotional stillness, Vinny imagined a different path. One where he taught the boy about resilience, about turning life's hardships into strength, all while shielding him from the shadows of his own legacy. Mia, however, remained a watchful presence. She pulled Tommy aside near the fence during a break, her young face etched with concern. "Tommy, you can't get too close. Men with big houses and fancy cars always have secrets. They make promises, then everything falls apart. I've heard stories from the other kids on the block, families taken in, then left worse off." Her warning carried the weight of lived experience, highlighting the deeper truths of disadvantaged children's lives. Constant uncertainty, broken systems that failed them at every turn. Elena observed from the window, her heart aching with a mix of hope and fresh fear. The absurdity of her situation struck her again, how a chance rainy night encounter had upended her world of desperation. She recalled the unjust evictions, the humiliating food bank lines where volunteers pitied her thin frame, the sleep deprivation that had left her dizzy and unbalanced on more mornings than she could count. These memories evoked a violent intensity of emotion, a confusing whirlwind that left her feeling small and powerless even in this safe haven. As evening approached, Vinny retreated to his study, the weight of the DNA confirmation pressing heavier. He summoned a trusted associate for a brief, discreet discussion, but the meeting was interrupted by an unexpected development on the perimeter. Rival scouts had appeared near the quiet residential street, their vehicles idling with suspicious intent. Vinny moved swiftly but calmly, confronting them in a tense street exchange under the fading light. His commanding presence and measured words, emphasizing boundaries and mutual respect, diffused the moment without escalation, though the encounter left a charged atmosphere of suspense. His men ensured the rivals departed, but the incident amplified Vinny's inner turmoil. Protecting them means endangering them. The violent conflict in his heart intensified remorse, clashing against the fierce determination to claim his role as father. Weeks later, during a crisp afternoon walk in a nearby park, another unjust shadow from Elena's past resurfaced. A former landlord, spotting her with Tommy, approached with unfounded accusations about unpaid damages from their old apartment. The confrontation was public and humiliating, stripping bare her lingering sense of powerlessness. Elena stood frozen, her voice soft and trembling, as she tried to explain dizziness washing over her from the emotional strain. The absurdity being harassed even after escaping that life tore at her spirit, evoking sympathy in its raw display of systemic cruelty toward the vulnerable. Vinny intervened with quiet authority, resolving the matter swiftly and escorting them away. In the car afterward, the luxury interior, a stark contrast to Elena's memories of crowded buses and worn-out shoes. He felt an overwhelming paternal pull toward Tommy, who sat quietly beside his mother. The boy's presence anchored him a living message of healing that challenged Vinny's long-held isolation. This child is mine to raise to redeem what I have broken. The revelation's full force hit him again in a wave of extreme psychological shock, numbing his thoughts and violently ripping open old wounds of regret for the father he had never been. Later that night, as the house settled into silence, Elena found Vinny in the living room staring at a simple framed photo of a baseball field. She approached hesitantly, her frail form a testament to endured cold winds and empty nights. "Mr. Rossi, you've given us more than I can ever repay, but I see something heavy in your eyes. If it's about us being here." Her words trailed off polite, yet filled with heightened curiosity and underlying anxiety. The disparity overwhelmed her once more, his world of influence and resources against her history of scraping by on discarded scraps. Vinny turned his fair-skinned face, revealing layers of deep emotion. He did not disclose the blood truth yet, but the inner tearing had grown sharper, a consuming remorse that made every breath feel labored. The father-child connection with Tommy burned passionately within him, a focal point of responsibility and compassion that reshaped his powerful existence. In this moment of stillness, he vowed silently to shield the boy from the Empire's dangers, even as rivals circled closer. The shocking twist of hidden blood had reshaped their fragile new reality. Tommy's innocent kindness continued to plant seeds of redemption in Vinny's soul, while Elena's resilient spirit, forged in poverty's fires, inspired a profound shift. Yet with each passing scene, the emotional depths unfolded, further promising greater tests ahead in their journey toward healing and unexpected family. Next morning, soft light filtered through the kitchen windows, illuminating the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pancakes on the table. Vincent Rossi stood by the counter, his tall, fair-skinned frame dressed in a tailored shirt that hinted at the quiet luxury surrounding him. The imported marble surfaces, the high-end appliances humming softly, and the sleek black luxury vehicle visible through the garage window. His powerful presence filled the room, yet his mind wrestled with layers of fresh torment. The blood revelation from the previous days had unlocked a deeper paternal ache, one that made every ordinary moment with Tommy feel both precious and painfully sharp. How do I bridge the years I missed? The gnawing remorse intensified, clashing violently with his instinct to maintain the controlled empire that had defined him. Elena moved about the kitchen with careful steps, her thin wrists turning as she helped set plates. The remnants of her extreme poverty remained etched in her appearance, cheeks still slightly sunken from long periods of malnutrition, eyes shadowed by countless nights of fitful sleep in doorways where Chicago winds cut like accusation. She had endured humiliating ordeals that no one should face, standing in lines for emergency aid only to be turned away for missing paperwork, watching Tommy shiver under thin layers during bitter nights when shelters overflowed. These memories brought a new wave of inner disorientation, leaving her momentarily numb as she adjusted to this sudden shift from desperation to tentative security. Tommy entered with Mia close behind the two children, carrying a sense of budding normalcy. The boy held up a simple drawing of a backyard scene, his small voice full of quiet pride. "Mr. Vinny, I made this for you. It's us playing catch." Vinny accepted it, his broad hand steady despite the emotional storm inside. A profound fatherly attachment surged through him, intense and protective, focused entirely on the child's well-being. This bond felt like a quiet resurrection, pulling him toward compassion he had long suppressed beneath layers of authority and regret. Mia, however, eyed the exchange with narrowed suspicion. Later that afternoon, as the children explored the backyard, she tugged Tommy behind the shed. "You shouldn't get too attached. People like him have rules. One wrong move and we're back on the streets with nothing. I know kids whose moms trusted someone rich ended up with nothing but more pain." Her words stemmed from her own scarred experiences. Parents lost to instability nights, wondering if there would be food. The constant fear of foster placements that shattered friendships like theirs. The revelation of such hardships among disadvantaged children added raw emotional weight, highlighting the unfair systems that left kids like Mia guarding their hearts fiercely. Elena watched from the porch steps, her posture still carrying the weight of powerlessness. A soft, timid politeness colored her voice when Vinny approached. "Mr. Rossi, Mia doesn't mean any harm. She's just scared like we all were." Curiosity mingled with lingering fear in her tone, creating a fresh, psychological tension. The vast contrast overwhelmed her anew, his world of seamless resources against her history of absurd injustices, such as being denied housing because of a single late payment, despite working double shifts at the diner. It evoked a confusing blend of gratitude and anxiety, her frail frame trembling slightly with the intensity of adjusting to kindness after so much rejection. Weeks later, during a routine trip to the local market, an unreasonable confrontation erupted without warning. A former acquaintance from Elena's old neighborhood spotted her selecting fresh produce with a small allowance Vinny had provided. The woman hurled baseless accusations about Elena abandoning her old life for handouts, drawing stares from shoppers and amplifying the public humiliation. Elena froze, dizziness sweeping over her, as old shame resurfaced memories of scavenging expired goods from dumpsters of sleep deprivation, leaving her unbalanced and hollow. The absurdity of being judged even in safety tore at her spirit, stirring deep inner torment that left her voice barely audible when she tried to respond politely. Vinny, accompanying them discreetly, stepped in with measured authority. His calm demeanor diffused the situation through firm but civil words, escorting Elena and the children away. Yet the encounter heightened suspense as rival scouts appeared at the market's edge, their presence a bold probe into his territory. In a tense street-side exchange near the parking lot, Vinny confronted them directly, his commanding tone emphasizing clear boundaries. The rivals retreated under the weight of his reputation, but the incident left a charged undercurrent, reminding Vinny of the perils shadowing his growing attachment. Later that night, in the quiet glow of the living room lamp, Tommy approached Vinny with a small plate of apple pie Elena had baked using ingredients from the well-stocked pantry. "Mom said this is like what grandmas make. Try it." The simple gesture pierced Vinny's defenses. As he took a bite, flavors evoking long-forgotten comforts stirred a violent wave of remorse-regret for the sterile luxury of his penthouse life, where such warmth had been absent. The father-child healing began in these condensed moments of emotional stillness. Tommy's innocent sharing mending cracks in Vinny's soul, fostering a responsibility that burned with passionate intensity. Mia, still guarded, created another layer of tension days afterward when she attempted to prepare for the worst by hiding food in her bag during a grocery outing. Elena discovered it gently, her heart aching with understanding. "Sweetheart, we don't have to do that here," she whispered softly, her voice polite, yet laced with shared pain. The scene exposed more of the children's vulnerable world, Mia's distrust rooted in stories of broken promises, revealing how poverty instilled survival instincts that clashed with emerging trust. Elena felt a fresh surge of horror at how close they had come to losing everything, her body registering the emotional strain through a wave of numbness. Vinny, observing from afar, felt his inner conflict escalate into something sharper. His wealth evident in the custom furnishings, the secure properties, and the influence that smoothed their transition now served a higher purpose, yet it amplified his torment. "I control so much, but I failed to protect my own son." The paternal love for Tommy deepened with every shared activity, like teaching the boy basic pitching techniques in the backyard under fading sunlight. These acts brought new emotional layers, pride mixed with aching regret, creating a focal point of healing through the child's pure kindness. In another unexpected street confrontation weeks later, while Vinny drove Elena to a medical appointment for lingering health issues from her malnourished past, a rival vehicle attempted to box them in at an intersection. Vinny navigated the tension with expert calm, his associates coordinating subtly from behind. Words were exchanged through lowered windows, veiled assertions of territory diffusing the bold challenge without incident, but leaving everyone shaken. Elena gripped the seat, experiencing shock and disorientation at how danger followed even in protection. Her voice, when she spoke afterward, remained timid and grateful. "You keep saving us. I don't know how to carry this." The daily tensions wove through their lives, yet the children's influence grew steadily. Tommy's small acts, drawing pictures of our new home, asking questions about right and wrong, acted as gentle balm on Vinny's violent inner storms. Mia's eventual small breakthroughs, like accepting a new coat without immediate suspicion, added complexity. Elena's trust built slowly, her overwhelming attachment centered on the safety this powerful man provided for her son, evoking sympathy through her resilient, yet deeply scarred spirit. In quiet evening stillness, Vinny sat with Tommy on the porch, the boy's head leaning against his arm in a moment of pure connection. The father-child bond strengthened a message of healing that challenged Vinny's empire-driven existence. The emotional trajectory pointed toward greater redemption even as hidden truths and external threats loomed, tearing at hearts in increasingly profound ways. Next morning, the suburban house buzzed with a fragile sense of routine. Vincent Rossi reviewed encrypted messages at his study desk, the rich mahogany surface reflecting the soft glow of a brass lamp. His wealth manifested in subtle opulence, the handcrafted desk imported from overseas, the secure communication devices, worth more than most families earned in years, and the silent team of protectors stationed at strategic points around the property. Yet his thoughts churned with escalating inner torment. The hidden blood connection to Tommy had amplified his paternal instincts into a fierce, unrelenting force, making him question every decision that had built his empire at the cost of personal isolation. What kind of father exposes his son to this darkness? The gnawing remorse clawed deeper, creating violent emotional conflict as duty to his organization battled this newfound vulnerability. Elena prepared a simple breakfast, her movements more fluid yet still marked by the scars of extreme deprivation. Her body remained thin, muscles weakened from prolonged malnutrition and endless nights battling Chicago's biting cold in makeshift shelters where wind seeped through every layer and left her shivering until dawn. The humiliating reality of her past, begging for shifts at the diner, only to be passed over for younger, less burdened workers, or facing utility shutoffs that plunged their tiny room into darkness, resurfaced in quiet waves, stirring fresh anxiety. She felt guarded, her soft voice carrying timid politeness when she spoke to Vinny. "Mr. Rossi, the children seem happier. You've given them stability I never could." Tommy and Mia dashed through the living room, planning an afternoon adventure in the backyard with the baseball and glove. Their energy brought fleeting lightness, but Mia's underlying wariness lingered, a reminder of the emotional walls poverty built in young hearts. Later that afternoon, as the group ventured out for a low-key outing to a nearby community park, danger struck without preamble. Rival faction members, emboldened by whispers of Vinny's divided attention, orchestrated a bold interception. Two vehicles converged unexpectedly on a quiet side street, forcing Vinny's car to slow. The confrontation unfolded in tense, measured exchanges, lowered windows, sharp words about territory, and perceived weaknesses. Vinny stepped out calmly, his commanding presence a shield, but a coordinated push from the rivals escalated the situation. In the chaos of the ambush, a sudden struggle erupted as they attempted to seize leverage by targeting the vehicle. Vinny fought to protect the family, positioning himself as a barrier. A sharp blow caught him off guard, followed by another that left him critically wounded in the side pane exploding through his powerful frame. Elena screamed softly, horror and anxiety flooding her senses. She clutched Tommy and Mia, her frail body registering deep disorientation, dizziness making the world spin as old powerlessness crashed back. The absurdity of the attack, coming amid budding safety, violently tore at her inner world, evoking tears for the life that refused to grant mercy. Vinny collapsed against the car, blood staining his shirt, but his focus remained razor-sharp on the children. "Get them away," he ordered his arriving associates, his voice steady despite the agony. The rivals retreated under the weight of his reinforcements, the street confrontation ending in a standoff of authority rather than further violence, yet the damage was done. Suspense thickened the air as the group raced toward a hidden safe house on the city's outskirts. In the frantic escape, Tommy and Mia displayed extraordinary courage beyond their years. The 8-year-olds refused to stay behind. Tommy, his small hands trembling but determined, helped support Vinny's weight alongside Mia as the adults struggled to move him from the vehicle into the safe house basement. "We won't leave you, Mr. Vinny," Tommy declared, his innocent resolve piercing the tension. Mia, overcoming her deep distrust in this crisis, grabbed a first aid kit from the car's compartment, her actions revealing the survival skills honed by street life. Knowing exactly how to apply pressure to a wound from overheard stories of neighborhood injuries, Elena moved in a numb haze, shock and confusion clouding her thoughts. She assisted where she could, her voice soft and polite even in panic. "Please hold on, Mr. Rossi." For Tommy, the disparity struck her with fresh intensity, this powerful man who commanded luxury and influence now reliant on the small hands of children who had once shared her powerless existence. Unreasonable injustice from her past echoed denied hospital access due to unpaid debts, leaving her to treat fevers with damp cloths in freezing rooms, amplifying her emotional turmoil into something numbing and profound. Later that night, in the dimly lit safe house, the children's bravery shone as the true turning point. Vinny lay on a makeshift bed, his breathing labored, the wound cleaned and bandaged under their careful watch. Tommy pressed a cool cloth to Vinny's forehead, whispering stories of backyard games to keep him conscious. "You taught me to catch the ball. Now you have to get better so we can play again." Each word acted as a healing balm, the father-child bond deepening through this shared peril. Vinny's heart tore with violent remorse guilt over endangering his son, mixed with overwhelming paternal love that burned brighter amid the pain. "This boy my blood is saving me." The remorse consumed him, reshaping his self-image from ruthless leader to a man desperate for redemption. Mia contributed in her own way, fetching supplies and standing guard by the small window, her loyalty forged in the fire of the moment. "I was wrong about you," she admitted quietly to Vinny during a still moment. "You protected us first." Her shift from suspicion added emotional layers, exposing the hidden struggles of children, like her constant vigilance against abandonment, the fear that kindness always hid a cost. Elena sat nearby, her thin frame exhausted, yet anchored by gratitude. Waves of fear and heightened curiosity washed over her as she witnessed the scene. The wealth surrounding Vinny's life, access to private medical contacts who arrived discreetly with supplies, contrasted painfully with her history of enduring cold, wind-filled nights without aid. A fresh, unjust memory surfaced, being turned away from emergency help, while Tommy suffered the humiliation, leaving her dizzy and hollow. Yet here, protected by this man's influence, she felt an intense, burning attachment, rooted in trust, not romantic, but a profound recognition of his protective heart toward her son. Weeks later, as Vinny began to recover in the secure location, the emotional aftermath unfolded in quiet, condensed stillness. He watched Tommy and Mia from his bed, their small acts of care, bringing water drawing, encouraging pictures, sharing simple jokes, mending not just his physical wounds but the deeper fractures in his soul. The inner conflict raged stronger, his empire's demands pulling against this emerging family responsibility. "I have spilled blood to build power, yet these children show me true strength lies in safeguarding innocence." Elena approached during one such evening, her voice timid and polite. "Mr. Rossi, seeing them help you. It changes everything. I was so scared we'd lose this chance." Her words carried deep, moving emotion, reflecting the mindset of someone lifted from utter misery into unexpected security. The drama of the ambush had escalated her inner world, leaving her alternately fearful and overwhelmingly attached to the stability he represented for Tommy. In another tense street confrontation, days after their return to the suburban house, under heightened security, rivals made a probing appearance near the perimeter. Vinny, still healing, directed from afar as his team handled the exchange with calm authority, words of warning sufficient to repel the threat. The suspense underscored his commitment, even weakened. The life-threatening event had forged unbreakable threads. Tommy's bravery and innocent kindness delivered a powerful message of healing, pulling Vinny from emotional isolation toward compassion and fatherly purpose. Elena's resilient spirit, tempered by poverty's cruelties, inspired him further. The ambush, though harrowing, marked a pivotal step in their shared journey, where children's hands healed what violence had broken, intensifying the path to redemption with each passing moment. Next morning, gentle rays of sunlight danced across the recovered suburban home, highlighting the fresh flowers Elena had arranged in a simple vase on the dining table. Vincent Rossi observed from the hallway, his imposing yet fair-skinned figure leaning against the doorframe. The house reflected his growing investment, plush furnishings chosen for comfort, a stocked library of American classics, and enhanced security measures that spoke of substantial resources. Yet his inner world roiled with heightened torment. The ambush had left physical scars, but the paternal bond with Tommy intensified his remorse to new depths. "I nearly lost him because of the life I chose." This violent self-conflict pulled at him relentlessly, the weight of hidden blood ties making every protective instinct feel both vital and burdensome. Elena worked quietly in the kitchen, preparing a meal with ingredients that still seemed like treasures after her years of scarcity. Her frame remained delicate, shaped by the brutal toll of poverty, endless stretches without proper nutrition that left her strength fragile nights huddled against biting winds, in abandoned lots where cold penetrated to the bone, and the constant humiliation of relying on charity that often came with condescending glances. She moved with a resilient grace, however, offering small comforts to those around her even in recovery. Tommy and Mia entered, chattering about a new drawing project. Elena listened with genuine warmth, her soft voice encouraging them. "That's beautiful, dears. Share it with Mr. Rossi later. He appreciates your thoughts." Her politeness carried a quiet dignity born from someone who had faced powerlessness yet refused to let bitterness define her. In contrast, a new figure arrived that afternoon. Marco, Vinny's second-in-command, a sharp-featured man whose presence brought an undercurrent of calculated ruthlessness. He had come to discuss business, his demeanor cold and pragmatic, viewing any softness as a fatal flaw in their world. Later that afternoon, Elena volunteered to help at a local community shelter, a place she knew too well from her own desperate times. She brought extra supplies from the house, blankets, canned goods, and warm clothing, her actions stemming from a deep-seated compassion. At the shelter, she comforted a young mother facing similar hardships, sharing quiet words of encouragement drawn from her own journey through eviction, denied aid, and sleepless nights, wondering how to feed her child. The experience filled her with a profound sense of purpose, yet stirred fresh inner turmoil, the absurdity of how society often abandoned the vulnerable, leaving families in cycles of despair, while others amassed fortunes unchecked. Vinny, accompanying her, discreetly witnessed her kindness unfold. It struck him with extreme psychological force, a stark contrast to the empire he had built. Marco, waiting back at the house upon their return, confronted Vinny in the study. "This family is a liability, boss. Attachments like this weaken us. The rivals sense hesitation. We should cut ties before it costs real power." His words were clinical, devoid of empathy, pushing for decisive elimination of perceived risks. The evil in his perspective clashed violently with Elena's selflessness, amplifying Vinny's internal storm. Remorse gnawed at him fiercely, guilt for the years his organization had contributed to the very streets that broke families like Elena's and Tommy's. "Her light exposes the darkness I've tolerated." Weeks later, during an evening gathering at the house, another unjust situation tested Elena's spirit. A caseworker from her past poverty days appeared unexpectedly, investigating old reports with unfounded skepticism about her sudden improvement. The questioning was invasive and humiliating, dredging up details of her malnourished state, the nights Tommy cried from hunger, and the powerlessness that had once left her dizzy with despair. Elena responded with timid politeness, her voice steady despite the numbness spreading through her. "We are doing better now, ma'am. That's all that matters." The absurdity being scrutinized even as she rebuilt tore at her emotions, evoking a deep, moving vulnerability that highlighted the systemic barrier she had overcome. Tommy, sensing her distress, brought her a handmade card afterward, his innocent act a beacon of healing. "Mom, you're the kindest person I know." Vinny watched from across the room, the father-child moment resonating profoundly. His attachment to Tommy burned with renewed intensity, a passionate responsibility that made him see Elena as the embodiment of the goodness he sought to protect. This created a compelling focal point of emotional upheaval, his love for the child driving him to question the evil tolerated in his ranks. Mia added tension through her evolving perspective. Still processing the ambush, she confided in Elena during a quiet backyard moment. "Miss Elena, you help everyone even when you had nothing. But men like Marco, they look at us like we're problems to solve." Her observation revealed deeper truths about disadvantaged children's lives, the constant judgment, the fear of being discarded when inconvenient. Elena hugged her gently, her own experiences of cold, wind-filled isolation fueling a compassionate response that moved Vinny deeply as he overheard. In a bold street confrontation days afterward, Marco's influence nearly sparked conflict. While Vinny escorted Elena and the children to a local diner for a treat, a simple pleasure after her history of scraping together Scrap's rival associates, linked to Marco's harder line, appeared at an intersection. The encounter escalated through tense words, exchanged from vehicles, accusations of Vinny going soft, veiled challenges to his authority. Vinny diffused it with commanding calm, his wealth and reputation serving as silent leverage, but the suspense lingered, underscoring the divide between his emerging compassion and the organization's darker expectations. Later that night, in a moment of condensed emotional stillness, Vinny sat with Elena on the porch after the children slept. She spoke softly, her voice carrying polite curiosity mixed with lingering guardedness. "Mr. Rossi, I see the weight you carry. Your world is so different from the one that nearly broke us, the endless nights without hope, the unfair doors closed in our faces." Her words reflected the mindset of someone lifted from extreme misery, evoking sympathy through her resilient yet scarred heart. Vinny felt his inner tearing intensify, violent conflict between the powerful man who had thrived on control and the father awakened to kindness. Marco's cold counsel echoed in his mind, contrasting sharply with Elena's warmth, which symbolized the humanity he yearned to reclaim for Tommy's sake. Another unreasonable event unfolded weeks later when old medical debts from Elena's most desperate times resurfaced through aggressive collectors at the property gate. The humiliation washed over her anew, memories of choosing between medicine and food, of balancing on the edge of collapse while shielding Tommy. Dizziness and pain accompanied the shock, her frail form registering the emotional violence. Vinny resolved it swiftly with his resources, but the incident deepened his remorse, highlighting the disparity, his effortless ability to erase burdens versus her history of enduring them alone. Through these contrasts, Elena's kindness shone as a quiet force against the calculated evil Marco represented. Tommy and Mia's presence amplified this, their innocent healing continuing to mend Vinny's soul. In the father-child bond, Vinny found motivation to resist the darker path, his protective love for the boy creating an increasingly intense drive toward redemption. The emotional rhythm built toward greater choices, where compassion might ultimately triumph over the shadows of power. Next morning, crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves through the open backyard gate. Vincent Rossi knelt on the grass, his powerful build tempered by careful movements, as he adjusted the grip on Tommy's small hands around the baseball bat. The boy's face lit up with determination under the coaching. Vinny's wealth was evident in the private space they occupied, a custom-fenced yard, equipped with quality sports gear, far removed from public parks where Elena once feared for their safety. Yet inside Vinny, the paternal connection had evolved into a profound ache that overshadowed even his empire's demands. Every lesson I give him now cannot erase the years stolen by my choices. This fresh layer of remorse tore at him with sharper intensity, a violent inner clash between the ruthless leader who valued strength through control and the father yearning to offer gentle guidance. Elena watched from the porch steps, her slender arms wrapped around herself against a lingering chill that recalled too many harsh seasons. Her body still bore the imprint of absolute deprivation, bones visible beneath pale skin from extended malnutrition. Energy reserves depleted by nights of restless vigilance in exposed corners, where relentless winds stripped away any sense of security. The humiliating cycle of her past returned in quiet flashes, applying for assistance only to face endless bureaucratic rejections, watching other families receive help while she and Tommy were overlooked due to incomplete records. These memories stirred a new confusion within her, a guarded curiosity about how this powerful man could open doors that had remained slammed shut for so long. Tommy swung the bat with growing confidence, connecting solidly with a soft toss from Vinny. The crack of leather against wood echoed like a small victory. "Did you see that, Mr. Vinny?" I hit it straight. The boy's pure joy washed over Vinny like a healing current, forging the father-child bond deeper through this shared accomplishment. Vinny felt an intense, protective attachment surge, a burning responsibility to nurture not just survival skills, but moments of genuine delight the child had been denied. In this condensed emotional stillness, Vinny allowed himself to envision futures filled with backyard games and quiet talks, challenging the isolation his power had enforced. Mia participated cautiously at first, then joined with tentative enthusiasm, her earlier distrust softening further through these ordinary activities. She shared a story from her own fractured upbringing of moving between temporary homes where belongings were frequently lost, revealing the quiet scars many disadvantaged children carried. Elena listened attentively, her voice soft and polite when she offered encouragement. "You both have come so far already. Keep practicing together." Later that afternoon, while Vinny and Tommy worked on a simple model airplane kit at the dining table, another absurdly unfair intrusion disrupted the peace. A persistent debt collector from Elena's most desperate period arrived at the property edge, armed with outdated claims about unpaid medical costs from Tommy's earlier illnesses. The confrontation unfolded publicly near the driveway, forcing Elena to step forward. Dizziness swept through her as old shame resurfaced, the powerlessness of choosing between hospital visits and basic rent. The sleep deprivation that had left her numb and unbalanced during those crises. Her frail form trembled slightly, but she responded with timid politeness. "Those matters are being handled now. Please, we are trying to move forward." Vinny emerged with calm authority, resolving the issue through a discreet call that leveraged his extensive resources. The contrast struck Elena with fresh psychological force, his effortless command over such burdens versus her history of enduring them in silent humiliation. This event escalated her inner world into deeper disorientation, a numbing realization of how suddenly protection had replaced endless struggle. Her overwhelming trust in Vinny's role for Tommy burned intensely, centered on the stability he provided her son. Weeks later, during a family-style evening in the living room, Vinny shared fragments of his own past, carefully chosen stories of youthful hardships that paralleled the children's experiences without revealing the empire's shadows. Tommy listened wide-eyed, then asked thoughtful questions that pierced Vinny's defenses. "Did you ever feel scared like we did?" The boy's innocent inquiry triggered extreme emotional upheaval in Vinny. Remorse gnawed violently at his core, guilt for the paths that had distanced him from such vulnerability now mirrored in his own son. The father-child bond deepened through this exchange, Tommy's compassion acting as an unexpected anchor, pulling Vinny toward greater self-reflection. Elena sat nearby, sewing a patch onto one of Mia's old jackets with meticulous care. Her actions reflected the kindness that defined her, forged in fires of cold, wind-filled isolation and meager meals stretched across days. A wave of anxiety mixed with heightened curiosity as she observed the growing closeness between Vinny and Tommy. "Mr. Rossi, the way you talk with him, It gives me hope we can build something real here." Her words, polite, yet laced with genuine emotion, highlighted the mindset of someone lifted from utter powerlessness into unexpected security. The disparity in their worlds evoked profound sympathy. Her thin, malnourished frame a living testament to endured hardships against Vinny's increasing displays of influence and comfort. In another tense street confrontation, days afterward while returning from a school supply errand, rival elements made an unexpected approach near a quiet intersection. Their vehicle pulled alongside, initiating a bold exchange of measured warnings about Vinny's perceived distractions. Vinny responded from the driver's seat with commanding presence, his words sufficient to de-escalate and send them on their way. The suspense of these recurring probes intensified his inner conflict, the Empire demanding unwavering focus, while his heart committed more fully to Tommy's guidance and protection. Later that night, under the soft glow of a reading lamp, Vinny and Tommy examined an old photo album Vinny had retrieved from storage. Images of American landmarks and simpler times prompted quiet conversation. Tommy leaned against Vinny's arm, a gesture of complete trust that sent a wave of paternal fulfillment through the Mafia boss. "This boy is healing what I broke in myself." The remorse intensified into something almost unbearable, a violent tearing that reshaped his priorities. Mia, watching from across the room, offered a small drawing of their group, her contribution marking another step in her emotional journey and exposing the resilience required of children from broken backgrounds. Elena approached during this stillness, carrying warm drinks on a tray. Her voice remained soft and timid. "Seeing you two like this fills a space I thought would stay empty forever." Confusion and deep attachment warred within her. The shock of transitioning from desperate survival to this protected reality left her occasionally numb, yet profoundly grateful for the fatherly role Vinny embraced toward her son. Another unreasonable situation arose weeks later when a community center, recalling Elena's past applications for aid, sent a belated rejection letter laced with bureaucratic indifference. The document arrived amid their improving circumstances, reopening wounds of rejection and powerlessness. Elena held it with shaking hands, a fresh surge of inner torment leaving her off balance and pained. The absurdity, continued reminders of systemic failure, even in safety, evoked tears as she reflected on nights when hunger had kept both her and Tommy awake. Vinny comforted Tommy during this time, using the moment to teach resilience and fairness. "Life tests us, son, but we choose how we rise." The father-child bond solidified further through these teachings, Tommy's attentive responses mending Vinny's soul in ways his wealth never could. The Mafia boss's emotional layers grew more complex, gnawing regret for past detachment clashing against the passionate responsibility he now felt. Through backyard evenings and shared discoveries, the connection between Vinny and Tommy blossomed into something transformative. Elena's resilient spirit provided quiet inspiration, her journey from humiliating poverty underscoring the value of the protection offered. In these deepening moments, Vinny confronted the most intense inner storms, yet driven by the child's kindness toward a path of greater humanity and fatherly devotion. The bond promised redemption, even as external pressures tested its strength. Next morning, a heavy fog clung to the suburban streets, muting the usual sounds of neighborhood life. Vincent Rossi stood at the window of the study, his broad shoulders tense beneath a finely tailored robe. The house had become a fortress of quiet luxury, reinforced doors, discreet surveillance, and furnishings that reflected years of successful enterprise. Yet his soul felt more besieged than ever. The deepening bond with Tommy had awakened a fatherly devotion so fierce it now threatened the very foundations of his power. "How much longer can I balance this life with the boy I failed before he was even born?" The remorse burned hotter, a violent tearing that left him grappling with choices that could no longer be postponed. Elena moved through the kitchen with practiced care, arranging breakfast plates. Her thin frame still carried echoes of profound hardship. The hollows in her cheeks from seasons of meager sustenance, the subtle tremor in her hands from nights spent awake in biting winds that howled through cracks in makeshift shelters. The humiliation of those years remained vivid, standing in rain-soaked lines for assistance only to be dismissed for minor technicalities, sacrificing her own portions so Tommy would not go to bed completely empty. These memories stirred fresh guardedness in her, a soft-spoken politeness when she addressed Vinny. "Mr. Rossi, the children are excited about the weekend. You've brought light back into their eyes." Tommy and Mia bounded in shortly after, full of plans for a backyard fort. Their energy provided Vinny a momentary anchor, the father-child connection manifesting in small rituals, Tommy seeking his approval on every detail, the boy's trust acting as a quiet force, reshaping Vinny's hardened perspective. Later that afternoon, tensions within the organization boiled over. Marco arrived. Unannounced, his expression grim, as he delivered news of rival factions growing bolder. "They see your focus shifting, boss. We need decisive action, not distractions." The conversation escalated in the study, Marco pressing for aggressive measures that clashed with Vinny's emerging values. The evil pragmatism in his second-in-command stood in sharp relief against the kindness Vinny had witnessed in Elena and the children, intensifying the Mafia boss's inner conflict to a nearly unbearable pitch. Weeks later, betrayal struck close to home. While the family prepared for an evening meal, an unexpected poisoning attempt unfolded through a compromised delivery. Vinny, ever vigilant, noticed subtle signs and limited his intake, but the toxin still took hold, leaving him severely weakened by evening. He collapsed in the living room, his powerful frame suddenly vulnerable. Elena rushed to his side, horror and anxiety flooding her features. "Mr. Rossi, what is happening?" Her voice remained timid and polite, despite the panic dizziness threatening her balance. As old powerlessness resurfaced, memories of watching loved ones suffer without resources, the numb despair of being unable to help. Tommy and Mia hovered nearby, their small faces etched with fear. The boy clutched Vinny's hand, his innocent presence a lifeline. In this crisis, Vinny made a calculated decision born of deepening suspicion toward those closest to him. Feigning greater distress, he whispered instructions to a trusted aide to spread word that he had only 1 hour left. It was a test not just of loyalty within his circle, but of the materialistic woman he had been engaged to for appearances, a socialite whose interest had always centered on status and assets. Later that night, in a private medical suite arranged through his extensive connections, the drama unfolded with chilling intensity. Vinny lay in the hospital bed, monitors beeping softly, his condition exaggerated for the test. His fiancée arrived swiftly, her demeanor shifting from concern to cold calculation once alone with the doctor. She immediately began directing the transfer of accounts and properties, her voice clinical as she urged haste. "If he's truly slipping, we should ensure everything is secured. And perhaps move things along comfortably for him." The night shift nurse, attending quietly in the corner, overheard every word, her expression hardening with disbelief. Vinny's heart pounded with extreme psychological shock beneath his composed exterior. The betrayal cut deep, but it paled against the remorse that now consumed him. "This is the world I built, one, where even supposed partners see me as an opportunity." The violent inner conflict raged. The powerful man who had commanded respect now confronted the emptiness of alliances, forged in ambition rather than humanity. Tommy's face flashed in his mind, fueling a passionate resolve to protect the child at all costs. Elena waited anxiously in an adjoining room with the children, her frail form a picture of endured misery. The unfairness of their situation weighed heavily, lifted from cold, humiliating poverty only to face new threats. She felt deep disorientation, numbness spreading as she pondered the fragility of their safety. "He has done so much for us," she murmured softly to Tommy, her voice polite even in fear. "We must stay strong for him." The nurse, moved by the scene, and her own sense of justice, intervened at the critical moment. As the fiancé pressed for faster action, the nurse stepped forward, blocking the procedure and revealing what she had witnessed. Chaos erupted in controlled tones, the fiancé's mask slipping as she was escorted away. Vinny, saved from the brink, felt a wave of profound relief mixed with renewed torment. The test had confirmed his deepest fears about his old life, tearing at him with fresh intensity. In the quiet hours that followed, Tommy was allowed a brief visit. The boy approached the bed, his small hand resting on Vinny's arm. "You can't leave us, Mr. Vinny. You're like the dad I always wished for." The words landed with the force of revelation, solidifying the father-child bond in this life-threatening hour. Vinny's remorse reached a crescendo, gnawing guilt for the dangers his world had invited, clashing violently with the overwhelming paternal love that now defined him. This child, his blood, had become the compass guiding him toward redemption. Elena entered afterward, her steps hesitant. Shock and confusion lingered in her eyes, the transition from desperate streets to this protected yet perilous reality, leaving her off balance. "Mr. Rossi, we were so scared. Tommy needs you. We all do in our way." Her attachment burned with quiet intensity, focused entirely on the security and fatherly guidance he offered her son. The disparity remained, striking his access to elite medical care against her history of denied treatments and sleepless, wind-battered nights. Days later, another bold street confrontation tested the fragile recovery. Rivals, sensing weakness after the poisoning news spread, attempted an approach near the medical facility during transfer back to the safe house. Vinny, still weak but determined, directed from the vehicle as his team engaged in tense verbal exchanges, asserting boundaries with authoritative presence. The encounter diffused without escalation, but the suspense underscored the major conflicts erupting around them. Mia, witnessing the aftermath, shared her own fears with Elena in a condensed moment of stillness. Even when things get better, bad people try to take it away. But Mr. Vinny fights for us. Her words highlighted the emotional truths of vulnerable children, the constant battle against instability. Another unjust situation emerged weeks later, when old neighborhood figures, learning of Elena's improved circumstances, made claims on supposed past favors, arriving at the property with demands. The humiliation echoed her powerless days, stirring anxiety and inner torment as she faced them with quiet dignity. Vinny resolved it from his recovery bed, his resources sweeping away the absurdity. Yet the event deepened everyone's emotional layers. Through the major conflicts and the shocking test of loyalty, Vinny's path clarified. The father-child bond with Tommy emerged stronger, the boy's innocent kindness, a beacon amid betrayal and threat. Elena's resilient spirit continued to inspire her journey from extreme poverty, emphasizing the value of the protection he provided. The second twist had pushed the story toward its climax, with Vinny's inner world torn more profoundly than ever, driving him closer to transformative choices rooted in compassion and responsibility. Next morning, filtered light seeped through the blinds of the private recovery suite, casting long shadows across the sterile yet comfortably appointed room. Vincent Rossi lay propped against pillows, his once unshakable frame still weakened from the poisoning, but his mind sharper than ever. The suite itself spoke of his substantial means: private nursing staff, advanced monitoring equipment, and quiet luxury touches like a leather armchair and fresh linens that cost more than many monthly rents. Yet wealth offered no shield against the storm raging within. The loyalty test had cracked open old wounds, and now the fatherly bond with Tommy demanded answers he could no longer avoid. Every secret I kept has come back to claim pieces of me. The remorse clawed with renewed ferocity, a violent inner war between the powerful man who had hidden his vulnerabilities and the father desperate to claim his son openly. Elena sat vigil in the adjoining lounge with the children, her delicate build still reflecting the brutal imprint of past deprivation, prominent collarbones from years of insufficient meals, exhaustion lines around her eyes from countless wind-lashed nights in doorways and overcrowded shelters. The humiliation of those times haunted her quietly, being denied basic support because of paperwork errors, watching Tommy's small shoes wear through while she could afford no replacements, the powerlessness of choosing between heat and food during bitter winters. She offered Tommy and me a gentle reassurance, her voice soft and polite. "Mr. Rossi is strong. He will pull through for all of us." Tommy nodded bravely, clutching a get-well drawing while Mia stayed close, her guarded nature softened but not erased by recent events. Later that afternoon, as medical checks continued, the night shift nurse who had intervened during the crisis returned for her follow-up duties. She moved with quiet efficiency, adjusting monitors and noting vitals. Vinny glanced at her, a faint recognition stirring beneath his fatigue. When the room cleared momentarily, she paused by his bedside. "You don't remember me, do you, Vinny?" Her words carried the weight of decades. She revealed herself as his high school sweetheart from 20 years earlier, the girl he had lost touch with during his rise through the city's underbelly. She had moved away, built a quiet life, and become a dedicated nurse, believing their paths had diverged forever. The revelation struck Vinny like a hidden blade. Extreme psychological shock coursed through him, leaving him dizzy and numb. She was alive all this time. Remorse exploded violently within guilt for the young man who had chosen ambition over connection for the years of isolation that followed. This new layer tore at him with fresh intensity, compounding the hidden blood truth about Tommy and the emptiness of his empire. Before he could respond, the nurse's young daughter entered the room, carrying a small bouquet, having waited in the hallway. The girl, close in age to Mia, looked at Vinny with wide eyes. In the emotional chaos of the moment, as explanations unfolded and voices overlapped, the child ran forward and threw her arms around him. "Daddy." The single word echoed in the suite, exposing another hidden layer of his past. The nurse's daughter was connected through Mia's circle. The girls had known each other from neighborhood programs during harder times. And the truth spilled out, another unintended consequence of Vinny's earlier life, daughter he never knew existed. The double revelation nearly shattered him. Vinny's broad chest tightened with overwhelming inner conflict, gnawing remorse for two children shaped by his absence, violent emotional upheaval that made the room feel unsteady. I have failed them before they even had names. The fatherly love he felt for Tommy expanded painfully to encompass this new reality, creating a focal point of profound responsibility that clashed against his powerful but shadowed existence. Elena stepped into the room at that moment, drawn by the raised voices. Shock and deep disorientation washed over her dizziness, causing her to steady herself against the doorframe as the scene unfolded. The absurdity of learning such truths while still raw from poverty's grip left her numb. Her voice emerged timid and polite, laced with heightened curiosity and anxiety. "Mr. Rossi, what is happening here?" The disparity hit her with renewed force, lifted from humiliating, sleep-deprived nights and freezing winds to this whirlwind of hidden family ties and sudden revelations. She felt confused and fearful, yet an intense attachment burned within, centered on the protection and fatherly stability Vinny represented for Tommy amid the chaos. Tommy approached the bed, his small presence cutting through the storm. "Even if there's more family, you saved us first. That means you can be good for all of us." The boy's innocent words anchored Vinny, preventing a full spiral into darkness. The father-child bond with Tommy acted as the steady heartbeat amid the explosion of truths, pulling the Mafia boss back from the edge with pure compassion and trust. Mia, witnessing everything, experienced her own turning point. Her earlier distrust of powerful men crumbled further as she saw Vinny's raw vulnerability. "You're not like the others," she whispered later to Tommy. "You were right about him." Her shift revealed deeper emotional truths about disadvantaged children, how rare genuine kindness felt, and how quickly trust could bloom when actions proved consistent. Weeks later, back in the suburban house, under tighter security, another unreasonable injustice emerged from Elena's past. A former social services representative, learning of the family's improved situation through rumors, arrived with retrospective questions about previous aid applications, implying irregularities despite clear evidence of hardship. The public questioning at the property gate humiliated Elena anew, dredging up memories of denied food stamps, medical neglect during Tommy's fevers, and the powerlessness that had left her thin and malnourished for so long. She responded with soft politeness, but inner torment raged, a confusing numbness that made her question if safety would ever feel permanent. "We only ever asked for what we needed to survive," she said quietly, her frail form registering the emotional violence through trembling hands. Vinny, still recovering but growing stronger, intervened with commanding authority, his resources resolving the matter swiftly. The contrast deepened his remorse, his effortless ability to command justice against Elena's history of enduring systemic indifference. This event escalated everyone's inner worlds, leaving Elena alternately fearful and overwhelmingly trusting in the shelter he provided for her son. In another tense street confrontation days afterward, while Vinny was transported for a follow-up appointment, rival factions made a bold probe near the route. Their vehicles flanked momentarily, initiating sharp verbal exchanges through open windows about shifting leadership and perceived weaknesses. Vinny directed a firm response from within his secured car, his reputation and measured words forcing the rivals to withdraw. The suspense heightened the atmosphere, underscoring the ongoing threats that tested his commitment to family over empire. Later that night, in a moment of condensed emotional stillness, Vinny sat with Tommy on the edge of the bed in the safe house. The boy leaned against him, sharing a quiet story about wishing for a father who stayed. Vinny's heart tore with greater intensity than ever. Violent conflict between the man who had built an empire through shadows and the father awakened to multiple children who needed him. The nurse's revelations had expanded his world, but Tommy remained the central healing force, his kindness a message of redemption that refused to let Vinny retreat. Elena joined them briefly, her voice carrying polite curiosity mixed with profound attachment. "This changes so much, yet you still stand for us. Tommy sees you as his father now." Her words reflected the mindset of someone rescued from absolute misery into a reality filled with unexpected layers. The burning trust she felt was passionate in its focus on her son's well-being, evoking deep sympathy through her resilient journey. Mia's connection to the nurse's daughter added further emotional texture in the following days, the girls bonding over shared stories of street hardships and newfound hope. Another absurdly unfair letter arrived weeks later. An old utility company pursuing phantom debts from Elena's most desperate period, reopening wounds of cold nights without power. The humiliation left her off balance and pained, yet Vinny's swift resolution highlighted the growing security he offered. Through the shocking family explosion, Vinny confronted the most intense inner tearing yet. The revelations had multiplied his responsibilities, but the father-child bond with Tommy provided the anchor. Elena's enduring kindness and the children's innocence continued to pull him toward humanity, setting the stage for even greater transformations ahead. The path to redemption had grown more complex, yet clearer, illuminated by the pure light of a child's trust. Next morning, pale hospital light filtered through reinforced windows of the secure wing, illuminating the array of monitors and the heavy oak side table brought in at Vinny's request. Vincent Rossi pushed himself upright, his fair-skinned face drawn from recovery, but his eyes burning with renewed purpose. The private facility reflected the peak of his influence. Discreet security details, custom medical arrangements, and resources that could summon specialists within hours. Yet none of it eased the escalating torment inside. The family revelations had multiplied his responsibilities, turning every breath into a battle between the empire he had forged and the father he now desperately needed to become. I brought them into my world, and now that world wants to devour them. The remorse tore through him with unprecedented violence, a consuming conflict that left no room for compromise. Elena waited in the adjoining lounge, her slender frame wrapped in a borrowed cardigan that still could not hide the lasting marks of extreme hardship. Years of scraping by had left her painfully thin, her posture slightly stooped from carrying the weight of constant survival nights curled against subway grates as icy winds whipped through threadbare layers, days of humiliating rejection at Taiman Alisafen, 8 offices where her pleas for Tommy's medicine were met with indifference. She spoke softly to the children, her voice timid and polite. "We must be patient. Mr. Rossi has carried us this far." Tommy and Mia sat close, the boy clutching the drawing he had made for Vinny. Tension hung in the air after the revelations, but the father-child bond remained Tommy's steady anchor. Later that afternoon, a trusted insider slipped Vinny an encrypted message that shattered the fragile calm. Marco, his second-in-command, had been orchestrating with rivals to eliminate the weaknesses, planning coordinated strikes on Elena, Tommy, and Mia, while Vinny remained hospitalized. Evidence pointed to hidden communications and diverted resources. The betrayal struck with extreme psychological force. Vinny's powerful hands clenched the sheets, numbness spreading as shock gave way to a violent inner explosion. The man I trusted most sees my son as a threat to remove. Remorse and rage clashed fiercely, the paternal love for Tommy fueling a desperate resolve. He could no longer wait. Against medical advice, Vinny orchestrated a quiet escape from the facility, slipping out under the cover of a routine transfer. The race against time began as his small, loyal team moved them toward a secondary safe location. Elena's eyes widened with horror and anxiety when informed. "Mr. Rossi, you are not strong enough yet," she whispered, her voice soft with concern. Dizziness washed over her as the weight of new danger pressed down. Reviving memories of powerlessness, fleeing eviction, notices in the dead of night holding Tommy close while hunger gnawed at them both. The unfairness left her numb, yet her attachment to the protection he offered her son burned with quiet intensity. Weeks of careful planning had led to this moment, but the betrayal accelerated everything. Tommy, sensing the gravity, approached Vinny in the moving vehicle. "I can help. I'm small. They won't see me coming." The boy's determination reflected the resilience born from street life, deepening the father-child bond in this high-stakes hour. In a bold and completely unexpected twist, Tommy put his plan into action that evening. With Elena's reluctant assistance, they had prepared a hidden recording during earlier quiet moments, capturing Marco's incriminating conversations through a discreet device. The boy used his small size to slip through service entrances at one of Vinny's lesser-known warehouses where Marco was meeting rivals. Heart-pounding, Tommy navigated shadows, delivering the recording directly into the hands of Vinny's most loyal outer circle associates waiting at a prearranged point. The act was pure courage born from the trust Vinny had earned. Vinny, monitoring from a concealed location nearby, felt his heart tear with overwhelming emotion. "My son is risking everything for me." The remorse reached new depths, guilt for the empire that had forced a child into such peril, clashing violently against profound pride and paternal love. This unexpected twist elevated the father-child connection to its most intense level yet. The final confrontation unfolded on a quiet industrial street as night fell. Rivals in Marco's faction converged when the recording surfaced, triggering a tense standoff. Vehicles formed a loose perimeter under dim streetlights. Words were exchanged with sharp authority. Vinny asserting control, Marco denying and countering with accusations of weakness. The atmosphere crackled with suspense as boundaries were tested without crossing into chaos. Vinny stepped forward to shield the extraction point where Tommy waited. In the critical moment, a sudden movement from a hidden rival prompted Vinny to lunge protectively. A shot rang out, striking him in the shoulder as he covered Tommy's small body. Pain exploded through him, but he held firm, pulling the boy to safety behind cover. Tommy's hands pressed against the wound, tears streaming. "You're my real dad now. Please don't leave me like everyone else has." The boy's voice, raw and innocent, pierced straight through Vinny's soul. In that instant, the ultimate sacrifice crystallized everything. The father-child bond fully resurrected Vinny's humanity. "This child has given me back what I lost long ago." Violent inner conflict resolved into crystal clarity. The Empire's shadows could no longer claim him. Elena arrived at the scene moments later with Mia, guided by loyal associates. Shock and confusion nearly caused her to lose balance as she saw Vinny bleeding yet holding Tommy close. "No, not after everything," she murmured, her voice polite even in terror. the absurdity of danger striking again after being lifted from cold, wind-battered nights of utter misery violently tore at her inner world. Yet her overwhelming trust in Vinny remained centered on the father he had become for her son. The disparity felt overwhelming, his willingness to bleed for them against her history of enduring humiliation alone. Later that night, in a hidden safe house, the aftermath unfolded in condensed emotional stillness. Vinny lay bandaged, his powerful frame sustained by willpower and discreet care. Tommy refused to leave his side, the boy's presence, a constant healing force. "You protected me like a real dad," he said quietly, strengthening the bond that had become Vinny's redemption. Mia stood watchfully nearby, her loyalty now complete after witnessing true sacrifice. Another tense street confrontation tested them days afterward, when remnants of Marco's faction attempted a final probe near the safe house perimeter. Vinny, weakened but resolute, directed from inside as his loyal team engaged in firm verbal assertions of new boundaries. The rivals withdrew under the weight of shifting power, heightening the suspense of the transition. Weeks later, an unreasonable final echo from Elena's past surfaced, a former landlord attempting to leverage old eviction disputes for personal gain, appearing at a neutral meeting point with baseless claims. The humiliation reopened deep wounds, memories of belongings left on sidewalks, nights of sleep deprivation that left her dizzy and hollow. She faced it with timid dignity, but the inner torment was profound. Vinny's influence resolved it cleanly, his wealth and authority sweeping away the injustice. Yet the event underscored how far they had come from her powerless existence. In the quiet hours that followed the betrayal's resolution, Vinny held Tommy's hand, the boy's innocent kindness having delivered the most shocking twist of all, the complete surrender of his old life. The father-child bond had reached its deepest expression through sacrifice and unwavering trust. Elena's resilient spirit, forged in poverty's cruel fires, stood as testament to the healing power of compassion. Vinny's inner world, once torn by violent conflict, now aligned toward one purpose, fully embracing fatherhood and protecting the vulnerable souls who had reborn him. The Empire's betrayal had forced the ultimate choice, and in protecting Tommy, Vinny had saved himself. The path ahead shimmered with possibility, illuminated by a child's pure heart. Next morning, soft golden sunlight bathed the modest new American home on the outskirts of Chicago, its backyard baseball field still damp with dew. Vincent Rossi stood on the wooden porch, his fair-skinned face etched with the lines of hard-won transformation. The house, though simpler than his former penthouses, carried a warmth his old wealth could never match: handcrafted furniture shelves lined with books on resilience and community, and a sense of genuine security built on new foundations. His empire was no longer the same. Portions had been quietly redirected toward legitimate channels supporting programs for families in need. Yet the inner torment had not vanished. It had evolved into a deeper, more humane reflection on the cost of power. Protecting what matters most means letting go of what once defined me. This final violent conflict within his heart resolved not in defeat, but in a profound acceptance of responsibility. Elena stepped outside carrying a tray of fresh apple pie, her movements steadier now. Her thin frame still whispered of the absolute extremity of her former life malnourished days, stretching into weeks' sleep stolen in fragments amid cold winds that chilled families to the bone in abandoned corners of the city. The humiliating poverty she had endured, with its endless cycle of denied opportunities and powerless nights, remained a shadow that made her appreciate every small mercy. She spoke in her familiar, soft, timid, and polite tone. "Mr. Rossi, the children have been asking about you all morning." Tommy ran up first, followed closely by Mia. The boy threw his arms around Vinny without hesitation. In this quiet, condensed emotional stillness, the father-child bond reached its purest expression. Vinny knelt his powerful frame, lowering to meet the boy's eyes. "Tommy, you are my son. Not just by blood, but by choice. I will raise you, protect you, and teach you every day." The words carried the weight of complete surrender to fatherhood. Tommy's innocent smile healed the last fractures in Vinny's soul, the child's kindness having delivered the ultimate message of compassion. Later that afternoon, as the group gathered in the backyard, a final, unreasonable echo from Elena's past surfaced. An old acquaintance from her most desperate days appeared at the edge of the property, making baseless claims about shared hardships and demanding assistance. The confrontation brought fresh anxiety, dredging up memories of humiliating food lines and sleep-deprived struggles where powerlessness had left her dizzy and broken. Elena faced it with quiet dignity, her voice polite despite the inner numbness. The absurdity of such claims even now evoked deep sympathy, highlighting how poverty's scars lingered. Vinny resolved it with calm authority, his remaining influence ensuring fairness without force, underscoring that true strength lay in protection rather than dominance. Weeks later, during a peaceful evening walk along a tree-lined path, another tense street confrontation tested their new beginning. Remnants of old rival factions made one last unexpected approach, their words probing for weakness in Vinny's shifted priorities. He met them with measured calm, his commanding presence and clear boundaries diffusing the moment. The suspense faded as they withdrew, affirming his commitment to a humane path. This encounter brought a fresh wave of remorse for past choices, yet reinforced his resolve to shield Tommy and the family from such shadows. In moments of deepening reflection, Vinny often shared simple stories with the children, drawing out valuable knowledge about resilience from everyday challenges. Tommy's questions led to discussions on fairness, where each situation offered a meaningful lesson in empathy. Elena listened with heightened curiosity, her overwhelming attachment rooted in gratitude for the compassion that transcended any divide. These exchanges provided genuine education on the power of second chances, showing how inner strength grows through acts of kindness. As days turned into weeks of quiet healing, Vinny established a foundation to support vulnerable children across the city. The work channeled his resources into programs, offering real opportunities, reflecting a richer understanding of life's interconnectedness. Through this, the family discovered that love and compassion knew no boundaries of skin color or economic status. Wealth and poverty could never separate hearts willing to open to one another. Mia thrived alongside Tommy, her own journey illustrating the knowledge gained from trusting genuine care. Elena's resilient spirit continued to inspire her presence, a constant reminder of the lesson that kindness heals what hardship breaks. The children absorbed this education, naturally learning the value of family forged through trials. Later that night, under a canopy of stars, Vinny sat with Tommy on the backyard bench, the baseball glove resting between them. The boy leaned against him, and in that stillness, Vinny felt the final release of long-held torment. "You brought me back, son. Your courage taught me more than any success ever could." The father-child ending was powerful and complete, Vinny fully embracing Tommy as his own, dedicating his life to raising him with love, guidance, and protection. This humane choice created space for broader healing, extending compassion to others who had once lived in similar poverty. In the following days, more reflections emerged during family gatherings. Vinny recognized the knowledge hidden in every act of bravery the children had shown. Elena shared her story softly, offering another lesson on perseverance that moved everyone. These shared experiences became a form of living education, emphasizing human connection above all. The family's journey highlighted yet another knowledge that true redemption comes from choosing compassion daily. Each small moment delivered a quiet lesson about the enduring power of family bonds. As the sun set on another peaceful evening, the deeper truth settled. Wealth might provide comfort, but compassion bridged worlds. The story revealed that love, regardless of background, flourishes when hearts prioritize humanity. This final chapter offered rich education on forgiveness and new beginnings, leaving a lasting lesson for anyone facing their own struggles. To everyone watching this video, may you enjoy good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. Thank you for joining this emotional journey. Please subscribe to the channel, like, and share to enjoy many engaging videos every day. How did this story make you feel? How does it connect to your own real-life experiences? We invite you to share your comments below so the creator can listen to the emotions from deep within the viewers' hearts. Goodbye for now, and we promise to see you again in the next video. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.